using a certain brand tube, you might want to stick to the same brand with your needle so that the sizes will match up. Or what you can do is try several different tubes and needles and just see which ones fit the best and which ones you like to use and don't have problems with. Now, I was telling you about this problem, having a bent needle, which will cut somebody while you're tattooing them. Something you have to be careful of when you fan out your needle group is that you don't go too far. You still want your needles pretty close together, because if you go too far out, they're going to do what this one does. You're going to get several small puncture holes, and then if this needle is at too much of an angle, you're going to get a tear or a bigger hole. So there are several tips, and they are made out of different materials. You have your round tip, which if you're looking at it straight on, it looks like this. You have your diamond tip, and then you have your flat tip. So from the side, this is what your round tip looks like. Kind of like a tube before it goes up in your color cup. And then you have your diamond tip, which comes at a little bit of an angle. And then you have your flat tip, which from the side might look like a diamond tip, but if you look at it better, you see it's a lot wider. This is more of a diamond shape, and this is a round shape. So the advantage to the diamond tip is that you can see more of your needle. Because it's at an angle back here, it allows you to see the needle coming out of the end of the tip. And another advantage is that because of the shape of the tip, your needle will sit down here where it belongs. With a round tip, your needle will have more of a tendency to move around because there's really nothing stopping it. But if you have this fitting correctly, it should stay pretty still. But it's kind of a preference thing, and I prefer the diamond tips. So this is a plastic diamond tip. You can see it's just the tip. And what this is designed for is that you have a metal grip and it slides into there, and then you tighten it down and it holds it in place. So this is a disposable tip that you would use with a grip that you would clean up once you are done. When you get these, this brand has this little lip that puts it in the correct spot. So that makes it a little more convenient. Some of them don't have that. And you can see this one is made out of plastic also, but you can get a tube grip and a tip that is made from metal. I just don't use those. I prefer to dispose of everything. I don't even use these anymore. I just use these plastic disposable ones. They're making all kinds of disposable tips now. This is a see-through tip. This is a ghost tip. And usually there's a grip on this, so you would only see the tip of this, but you can see through it. And these are made out of a little harder plastic, so I prefer to use these. These ones work, but the plastic isn't as good, isn't as hard, so, and you can't see as much. And they even make disposable tubes that have metal tips. So if you believe that you can't get the same results from a plastic tip as you can from a metal tip, you can always buy a disposable that has a metal tip on it. Now another advantage to this diamond tip is that you can buy a 9 round diamond tip. Now you can use a 7 round and a 5 round. You can use a smaller needle group in this tip because even though it's smaller, it will still hold your needles down in the bottom of the tip. So this way you can go out and buy several 9 round tips and have them on hand, and if you need a tip for a 7 or a 5, you're already covered. So the same thing applies for a rounding needle as it does for a mag or a flat. You want to make sure that your needle is sitting flush with the back of the tube. Now what happens is if that is not the case and your needle is up here, what happens is ink will spit out of the end of the tube. Instead of staying on the needle, it's going to splatter everywhere. So the way to solve that problem is to make sure that your needle is on the bottom of the tip. And to do that, what you might have to do is take out your needle and rebend it. Put a little bit more bend in it, maybe put a little bend here to make sure that it sits on the bottom of the tube. Another thing that might be happening is that your needle might be going up and down, or it might be hitting somewhere. So by putting a rubber band on there, if you have one rubber band and you're still getting these kinds of motions, you might need to put that second rubber band on it. You need enough tension to hold this needle right here, and you don't want it flopping around, and it's going to be spitting out ink and causing problems. So you want to make sure it has enough tension and your needle's in the right position to keep it on the bottom of this tip or else it's going to start spitting ink everywhere. And you're going to have a hard time tattooing because you're not going to be able to see your line, because first thing that's going to happen is you're going to go towards the person's skin and it's just going to spit ink all over the skin, and you're going to wipe it off and probably end up wiping off a lot of your stencil before you can even get started with the tattoo. So don't just try to work through that and just work with a needle that's spitting everywhere. Just redo your setup, or check your tension on your rubber bands, check your angle of your needle, make sure it's on the bottom of the tip, and that will prevent the ink from spitting out of the end of your machine. Let's get down to identifying our needles. Your needles should come with a code on them. They should also have an expiration date and something that identifies that this has been sterilized. This says sterile with EO gas, only if package is undamaged, which I've opened it up, so it would no longer be considered sterile. But you can see it has this code here, and if you don't know anything about tattooing, this is just going to be gibberish to you. And a lot of times the codes are different. This is the code for this brand of tattoo needle, but if I look at another tattoo needle, it will have a different code on it. So you have to know the codes for that specific brand, and you can go online and find that information out, but they should always have expiration date and a way to tell that it's been sterilized. This has a little turns blue when sterilized, and there's a little marker to let you know. So those are things to look for. So let's split this number up and identify what all of this code means. So for this needle, we have 1201 RL. Now the first numbers on here, this identifies the diameter of the needle. So the needles have different diameters, and when I say diameter, and what I'm talking about is if I took a single needle and measured the diameter of it, how thick it was, that's what would give you this number. A number 12, this is number 12 needle, is 0.35 millimeters in the diameter. So that's how thick one single needle is. So you can get several different sizes on the needles. You can get the smaller diameters and even a bigger diameter. So if you think about this, like a pen, you have pens that have fine points, and then you have like felt tip markers, and you have big fat markers. So the fine point is smaller, and it will make a smaller line, a more finer line. And as you move up in the diameter of the pen, it will start to make a thicker line. And then you get to the biggest one you have, which makes a really thick line. So that's how the diameter of your needles work. I could have a 7 round liner that makes a mark like this because it has the smaller needles, or I could move up to a 7 round liner, that would be bug pin, move up to a 7 round liner that's a number 12 needle, and it's going to have a thicker diameter. It's going to make a bigger mark. Your next set of numbers is how many needles are in your group. What's the number of needles you have? So if this is saying 0, 1, you have 1 needle. If it says 0, 7, you would have 7 needles in your group. You might find a package that just says 7 without the 0. Same thing. This has 7 needles. So you have your diameter of your needle, the number of your needles, and then you have the shape of your needles. Typically when you think about needles, you think about mags, and this needle group has a set of needles with another set of needles stacked on top of it. And that's your mag. And then you have your needle group that has just one row of needles. And that's your flat needle group. And then you have your round needles. And that is a set of needles that instead of being laid out, they are formed into a round shape. And now that we are getting into more specialty type needles, We're seeing a lot more of that on the market. They have some newer things, which one of those is a round that is hollow in the middle. And so that's your hollow needle group. But your major needle groups that you're going to see are actually mags and rounds. So what this is telling me is the shape of the needles. So I have one needle that's a number 12 and it's a round line. So what I have here is one needle that's 0.35 millimeters in diameter, and it is in the shape of a round liner. R is for round, L is for liner, and you have to learn the different markers. So for a round, you usually see a RL for a round liner and a RS for a round shaded. Now these are for your very simple needles, not getting very complicated here. For your mags, sometimes you will see just an M for a mag, or you will see a RM for round mag, or you will see a M1 or a M2. So different markers here, but what they are saying is there is a difference between a mag and a round mag. Your mag comes up and goes straight across. That's your mag. Your round mag comes up, but then you have some shorter needles on the side, so it curves over and then comes down. So your codes can be different from package to package from different suppliers. You can see on this one that none of that applies. They just put right there on the package 9 round tight number 12, which is completely different from what we were looking at. Here is a 7 round shader, and you can see that it's a looser group of needles. The solder starts right where this little red line is at, because that's for shading. That's not super tight. You want that to be loose. So here is our 9 round tight, and if I put it the same distance as this needle right here, you can see that the solder goes all the way to here, and the needles are a lot closer together at the tip. This is going to make a mark like this, and this one's going to make a mark like that. And then this isn't a tight needle, but this is a smaller group of needles. This is a bug pin, and you can see that the solder goes all the way up to here. and the needle group is really small, so it's going to make a mark like that. So this is a 7 round shader, and this is a 7 round liner bug pin. So you can see the difference, and it's got 7 needles. They both have 7 needles, but they're still going to make a different mark because of the size, the diameter of the needles, how tight the needles are put together. Be aware that not all needle brands are the same. Now let me show you this, for instance. This is a brand that has a 1 round liner, and you can see that there is 1 needle coming off of this 1 round liner. It's very difficult to tattoo with this one single needle. And what different brands will do is to get ink flow to this single needle, they will have 1 needle with 2 kind of feeder needles. It'll be like a 3 round liner, except for your needles don't go all the way to the top. They'll stop right back here, and what that does, it just allows the ink to travel to the tip of the needle, so it'll work better. But you can see with this one, it does not have those support needles. It doesn't have anything to help feed that ink to the tip of the needle. It's just the needle bar and then the needle, single needle. So if you're looking to find a single needle that'll work better, you might want to find a brand that has the 3 round liner types with just the 1 needle sticking out a little bit further, instead of this brand that just has the single needle coming out, which will be a little more harder to use. And while we're at it, certain brands, I could use a 7 round liner in this brand needle, and then a 7 round liner in another brand, and they'll be completely different. I do line work with a shader, but the shaders I use are this brand. And then recently I switched to another shader needle, and I couldn't line with it because it was a lot looser. What happened was the shaders that I were using were a lot tighter in the group, which allowed me to line better with them. But when I switched brands, the same amount of needles, but they actually had spaced them out a little more evenly, so they were harder to line with. You know, they might solder them at a different point, making them looser or tighter. So be aware that not all brands are created equal. They're all going to work a little different from each other. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my page. You can also visit me and other tattoo artists on Facebook